It was supposed to be a peaceful week. After months of intense work, a man named Daniel decided to get away from it all. He chose a secluded place, far from the city, where he could relax and reconnect with himself. Browsing Airbnb, he found a wooden cabin in Colorado, USA, surrounded by trees with a nearby lake and a charming fireplace. Exactly what he needed. The photos showed a clean, cozy, and rustic place. The host seemed friendly, and all the reviews were positive. Nothing suggested that this trip would turn into a real nightmare. Daniel arrived in the late afternoon. The sunset lightly touched the windows, bathing the house in a golden glow. Everything was just as advertised. He dropped his bags in the bedroom, lit the fireplace, and made himself a hot drink. The silence was so deep, he could hear his own heartbeat. But on the very first night, something caught his attention. Around 3 a.m., he woke up to a strange sound, a faint creaking. At first, he thought it was just the house settling or the wind in the trees. But the sound repeated. Footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps from inside the house. He froze in bed, holding his breath, armed with a flashlight. He walked to the living room. Nothing. Total silence. He thought about letting it go. After all, our minds can play tricks when we're alone. But something felt off. A faint smell of mold and sweat, barely noticeable, began to fill the air. The next day, he noticed a detail he had missed before. The large bookshelf in the living room, filled with books and decorative objects, wasn't fully flush against the wall. A tiny gap, almost imperceptible, revealed that it might be loose. Daniel pulled hard. The bookshelf creaked. It was a door, a hidden door that led to a narrow, dark corridor hidden within the wall of the house. The hallway was dirty, with disturbed dust, and at the end, a room, an improvised bedroom. Inside, there was a stained mattress, water bottles, food wrappers, soda cans, and a filthy blanket. The whole place reeked of mold and urine. It looked abandoned, but it also felt like someone might still be using it. Panicked, Daniel ran back, grabbed his phone, and left the house. He called the police and waited outside, shaking. When the officers arrived and investigated the place, they found recent footprints in the dirt floor, as if someone had been there in the past few days. The host was questioned but claimed he had no idea that room existed. The house was old, and he had inherited it from his grandparents. No convincing explanation was given. No person was found. No suspect identified. Daniel never returned to that house. The Airbnb listing was taken down a few weeks later, without any official statement. But the most disturbing part isn't what was discovered, it's what was left unanswered. Who had been living there hidden inside the walls? And what would have happened if Daniel had stayed one more night? Sophie and her friend Clara were living a dream. Their first international trip. They chose Paris and were excited to visit the landmarks, take pictures at the Eiffel Tower, and walk through the charming streets just like in the movies. To save money, they booked an apartment on Airbnb, small, but well located near a metro station, with good reviews and modern decor. Everything seemed perfect. The host was friendly through messages, sent clear instructions, and even suggested a few local restaurants. Everything felt safe and well organized. When they arrived, the apartment looked exactly like the photos, clean, modern, and with minimalist decor. But on the very first night, something unsettled Sophie. While taking a shower, she had an irrational but disturbing feeling of being watched. Later, while lying in bed, she noticed a dark spot on the bedroom ceiling. It was small, about the size of a coin, but it looked out of place. She mentioned it to Clara, who laughed and said she was overthinking, but Sophie decided to check. She climbed onto a chair, grabbed a flashlight, and pointed at the ceiling. What she saw made her stomach turn. It was a tiny lens, discreetly embedded between the ceiling panels. They immediately began searching the apartment for other signs, and they found them. Another identical device was hidden behind a bathroom mirror, and another, smaller one, inside one of the smoke detectors. All very well placed, all pointing toward private areas. They panicked. Sophie messaged the host, demanding an explanation. He saw the message but didn't reply. They tried contacting Airbnb, but the support would take hours. Not knowing what else to do, They decided to leave immediately and find another place to stay that night. The next morning, feeling a bit calmer, they went to the police. The officers seized the devices and filed a report. That's when the most chilling detail came to light. According to the initial forensics, the cameras weren't just recording. They were live streaming through a hidden Wi-Fi network connected to a server outside of France. In other words, someone had been watching everything in real time. The police launched an investigation, but the apartment owner had vanished. The information on the app was fake. The personal and banking details used to register the listing belonged to someone else. The listing was removed, and the case made local headlines for a few days. Then, it was forgotten. Sophie went back home in shock, feeling like something inside her had been violated. To this day, she avoids staying in unfamiliar places. She sleeps poorly and often wakes up in the middle of the night with a feeling that someone is watching her. And the worst part? Her case wasn't unique. Every year, new stories emerge of guests discovering hidden cameras in rentals around the world. Some record, others stream, and in many cases, no one knows who's on the other side of the screen. In 2019, a Canadian YouTuber couple decided to isolate themselves for a week to create different content for their channel. They were tired of the fast-paced city life and wanted to film a series of videos showing what it would be like to live in the middle of nature with minimal technology. They rented a cabin on Airbnb near Vancouver, Canada. The listing mentioned it was close to a popular hiking trail, but still in a very remote area, surrounded by trees, lakes, and with barely any cell service. It was exactly what they were looking for. They arrived on a rainy morning. The road was unpaved, and the fog gave the place the feel of a horror movie. But they were excited. The cabin looked rustic on the outside, but cozy on the inside. It had electricity, hot water, and a huge fireplace. Perfect for a week off the grid. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. They filmed videos cooking on a wood stove, exploring the forest, telling scary stories at night. It all seemed like a peaceful experience. Until the fourth day, when things started to go wrong. It started with noises. Loud creaking from the roof in the middle of the night, as if someone were walking up there. Then, footprints in the mud, barefoot human footprints, all around the cabin. They didn't belong to either of them. The couple was frightened, but tried to stay calm. They figured it could have been a local, or maybe even an animal. But the fear intensified when they found a note stabbed to the cabin door with a knife. The paper was soaked from the rain, and the message was short. "I know you're here." They called the police, but because of how remote the area was, it would take hours for anyone to arrive. So they locked themselves inside and waited for sunrise. But that night, the cameras they were using to film their videos started shutting off, one by one, as if someone knew exactly where each one had been placed. The next morning, the couple was gone. Police found their car still parked outside, their belongings inside the cabin, food in the fridge, clothes in the closets, but no sign of them. The only footage recovered from the cameras showed them having dinner on the porch, smiling and talking, just hours before they vanished. No signs of a struggle, no tracks in the woods, no bodies. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Airbnb removed the listing, and the cabin was left abandoned. Locals avoid going anywhere near it. Some hikers have reported hearing voices coming from the area at night, voices crying for help. Others say they've seen lights on inside the cabin, even though there's no power anymore. But the one question no one has been able to answer is, what happened to the couple that night? And who or what was watching from the trees?